Welcome to this Pastel My Business online webinar.
In today's webinar, we will be addressing importing and mapping the bank statements. Okay, so I'm just going to follow through how you'd normally log in. If you have a look, okay, I've gone to my webpage, www.pastelmybusiness.co.za. So I'm just going to log in as normal. The great thing in My Business Online, especially if you've been using previous Pastel systems, is it's just a standard on the product that you can import your bank statement. With this, it enables you to go into your bank, from there, download the statement and import it. So it saves you a lot of time from having to manually recapture this. So I'm going to show you exactly how this is done. Okay, so I'm just going to log in there. Okay, so in My Business Online, you're allowed to import in two different formats, which are supported by a majority of the banks. It's either an OFX format or a CSV format. We always suggest using the OFX, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just go onto the banking side. Okay, so initially, when you are importing bank statements, you need to ensure that banks are set up. So if you go to banking, you've got your list of banks and credit cards. So from there, you need to ensure that you've actually got something set up. If not, add your account and then complete all that information. Once that is done, you can go to banking, import bank statements. Okay, and then that's where you're going to select which account statements are you actually importing. Okay, so as I indicated, you've got two types of format, your OFX and your CSV format. OFX should always be your first option of importing. It's a very much an easy import due to the fact that you can't view the file, and from there it basically just imports it. Then you've got a CSV format. CSV, also majority of the banks support that as well. So from there you generate that CSV, ensure that it is in the correct columns, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes. And then from there, just indicate is a day, month, year. With OFX, you won't even have to indicate that because the system will automatically pick that up. So just to rephrase, just re-go on that again, basically, OFX would be your first alternative. If you can't do it in OFX, then CSV is going to be your second alternative. Okay, you've also got an option. If you have a look on the right-hand side, you can either import all transactions, so that is appearing on the bank statement, or alternatively dates to import, so you can select a range that you want to import with. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go onto my banking files. So I've actually just created a whole bunch of formats. Okay, so if you have a look, I've got an OFX format and an FMP. These aren't actually viewable files. So what initially you do is log onto your banking. From there should be an option where you can either view your statement or where it indicates statement. Once you're in that statement, there'll be an option where you can export it. Once you select that export, it will actually give you a whole bunch of options. I mean, some of the banks go in a large range. Some have your simple formats. So I mean, go have a look for the OFX one. If not, have a look at the CSV one. Okay, so if you are working on the OFX, I'm not going to go too much in that because it's very much an easy import. Initially just going into your bank, selecting OFX, and then saving it somewhere on your computer. However, on the CSV side of things, because many of the banks have different fields, I mean, if you have a look at Standard Bank, it would have 7 fields. Nedbank would have your 4 or 5 fields. So what I'm going to do is just actually go on a test file that I've been working on. Okay, so if you have a look here, this is the type of format it needs to be in. So I just want to expand. Okay, so in many cases when you're exporting that CSV file from your bank, this might not always be in the correct format, but this is the only format that we'd accept. So it's date, description, amount. So you'll see in many cases on the bank import file, you're going to have your banking details, the account number, and all of that stuff. So what you need to do is, I mean, you need to actually use the Excel just to delete those lines. So where it says your bank account, delete the lines so that it only displays your dates, description, amount. So even where it's got a history or, you know, certain files that might be indicated. Okay, so adjust that so it is in the correct format, and then from there also take note of how your date is structured. So it can either be year, month, date, or year, date, month, whichever it might be. Just remember that which format that's been set out. Okay, so I mean, yeah, that's initially what you're going to do on a CSV file, because like I said, it doesn't always import exactly as what you're seeing on my screen at the moment. It might have 7, 8 fields, and then from there you need to work through those fields and see exactly which one you want to remove. Okay, so initially once you've done that editing and it looks exactly as is, you need those descriptions as well. So date, description, amount. You're actually going to just go File, Save As, and then ensure that when you're saving that file, so even if you indicate the dates, the type needs to be CSV. So ensure that when you're selecting it, it needs to be a CSV, and then you can save it. So the system won't import it if you've just selected normal Excel workbook, so it will reject that. Okay, so once you've saved that, sorry, I'm trying to address each question as I go along. I've got Skulk. He wants to know, does the OFX format always exclude the lines not required? Yes, Skulk, you won't even have to open up the OFX format. The system will automatically read that format and then just import the relevant fields. So you won't have to worry about deleting anything there, even opening it up. So that's why I'm saying that the OFX format will always be your first option. Okay, so let's go have a look and actually start importing this so that you can get exactly an idea. Okay, so let me just go back onto my business online. Okay, so I'm going to even show you on an OFX side. So I mean, initially you'd log into your banking. From your banking side, you'll have, let's say, an APSA or FNB OFX file. Okay, I'm just waiting for your screen to come up there. Okay, so an OFX or FNB. So initially you just save it to your desktop. From there, I'll go into my banking, select OFX, browse. So not even indicating the date. And then I'll select that, import file. Okay, so initially if you haven't processed any of the transactions, so what the system's saying to me, okay, I've got something already there, should it just be deleted? So I know that that can be deleted, so I'm just going to say yes on that. So yeah, make sure that before you're importing this file, that whatever's currently, because the system, as soon as you do an import, the system stores that in a temporary folder, so where you can actually save it. Only initially once you say process, does the system process it into your system. So you can log out and then log back in, and that information will still be there. But if you want to import another file, it's actually going to ask you if you want to delete what currently is on the screen. So ensure that if you don't want to clear it, otherwise make sure you do process it. Okay, so if you have a look, okay, so it's imported that OFX file. I had to do nothing on my side, purely go into the bank, from there select OFX and then import it. Okay, so initially when that is imported, it will appear as follows. And this is initially where you actually start indicating. So you'll see on your type, it will have your relevant, is it accounts, customer, supplier, transfer, tax. Okay, so from there, if I have a look, just want to have a look for one that's a bit more relevant. Okay, so I mean, let's say that is one of my customers. I'll go and indicate customers. From there, go and select a relevant customer. Okay, so let's say this happens on a frequent basis and I want the system to start remembering exactly what I'm allocating. Because especially if you've got things like telecom and that type of thing that you don't want to map each and every month, and you know it's going to come in and the description always remains the same. What I can do is tell the system, so you're basically making the system smart and saying to the system, whenever you see that, map it already for me because it's never going to change. So you'll have a look on the right-hand side, there's a map option. Well, initially you've first got the delete option, so you can actually delete a line. Alternatively, there is a map option. So the system will tell you that is the way, that's the way that the description displays. And then you can enter your display description. So let's say I only want to know, let's say Claremont. I can select it exactly as that and then save it. So then you'll see it will actually gray out that column to say, okay, fine, it has been mapped on the system. Okay, so initially what you'll do is you'll do that with each and every one of the transactions displayed on the screen. Okay, so just the normal allocating it to relevant account, customer, or supplier. I've got a question from, sorry if I got the name wrong, Lindy. She wants to know, does the amount of the mapping have to be the same each and every month, or just the description? What would be the description, even if your description changes a slight bit? So let's say you've got, in many cases, you've always got the banking, they'll have a bunch of coding and that type of thing. You can tell the system to indicate on a certain thing. So let's say my description there, I just indicated the Clearmont. So every time it sees, let's say Clearmont certain something, it will map it to that. So it's very much focused on the description. Your amount can vary on that certain thing. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, I've got a question from Nadine. I'll address your question in a few minutes, Nadine, when we get to that section. Okay, perfect. So initially you'll start mapping it, adding it to your type and selection. You'll see that if you want to process this and you haven't actually allocated to a certain account, the system will tell you. So let me just quickly process that. I've got a question from, okay, just quickly on that message, it says selection required, choose a valid account. So the system will, if you might just miss one of those transactions, the system will actually say, okay, well, listen here, there is something that hasn't been allocated. So just in case you might overlook that. Okay, I've got a question from Sylvia. Do you import the bank statement first and then map it? I would actually suggest this because then you're actually working with a live data, and then you can exactly tell the system which description to have a look at, because even though your description might indicate a bit different, it saves you a lot of time than actually manually typing that over. So Sylvia, I would actually suggest importing the file and then mapping it. So as you go along, a lot of your transactions will start, they will actually be mapped previously. So after a while, you won't have to map much, just transactions that happen on like a once in a while basis. Okay, I'm just going to, so I'm just having a look at the questions. Okay, so once it's done, what I want to do is also do the CSV formatting. So what I'm going to do is go banking, import bank statements. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I don't want this anymore, so I will say clear all and then clear all transactions. Okay, so all those transactions will be deleted. Okay, so let's go to that CSV format. Let me quickly have a look at my file. Like I said, that date range, well, the date setup is very, very important. So I've got date, month, year. Okay. So date, month, year is exactly as it's indicated. Then I need to browse for that specific folder and ensure that it is that you have actually in fact saved it into CSV format. From there I can select import file. Okay, and then all those transactions will actually pull through on the screen. So you'll see it will actually tell you 1 of 10 is displayed. Then from there you have the option to go save next and then actually view the next screen with the transactions. So as you see, I've already mapped previously. If you have a look at that A and G consultants, I've mapped it previously on my system. So as soon as I imported that bank statement, the system already saw that A and G and mapped it for me automatically without me having to do anything on that. So that's what the system will start doing. As you import, it will start graying out those ones that are specific. I mean, you have an option to go in and change it if need be, but the system will do that for you. Okay, so I mean, initially that is on an import side. Once that's done, you'll go save next, view each and every one of them, allocate them to an account, a supplier or customer, and then process it. Like I said, you can delete a line, use the mapping option, so that because it saves you a lot of time from actually having to map things that do happen on a regular basis. Okay, then, what I want to do is actually just have a look at that mapping. So you can go banking, map bank transactions. Okay, so if you have a look, what the system will do is it will actually list all my mapping this far. So at any time you can actually go and delete a line if need be, and then you can make changes to that, and then from there save it. Or otherwise even add a line. So I mean, I can add a line here and I know that a certain customer pick it up because that's the way it's going to be displayed. Okay, so if you know your customers are going to pay, let's say, on a specific reference, you can go and indicate all of your customers, put in their reference, and also ask them to display it as, instead of their reference, as the full company name. So you've got that. So let's say, just to give you an example of that customer, from the selection, let's say it would be cash. Their description will be one, let's say, sorry, I just want to get in. Okay, so let's say it would be bunches 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because you've indicated a code to them. From the display could just be bunches for Africa, exactly what the company name is. So it will read that on the bank statement, but it will display that. Okay, and then from there you can just basically save it. Okay, so that's basically on an import side. I think initially what would need to happen is you need to go into your banking. From there, go have a look where your statement lies, where you can export that statement, because it varies from bank to bank. Once you are in there, go and have a look first for an OFX format. I know sometimes they call it a bit different, but anything that just says slightly, it's got OFX in there. Take that, export it, save it onto your computer. Once that's done, come and import it into the My Business Online, and then from there start mapping it, allocating it and then mapping it. On the CSV side, if you don't have an OFX format, ensure that you save it, open it up in Excel, and ensure that all the fields are in the correct format. So like I said, it was date, description, and then amount. So it needs to be in that specific format, otherwise the system will give you a message and it won't actually import it. So it will say it needs to be in date, description, and amount. So the way the date's stipulated, that doesn't really matter. I mean, if you have a look on your date side of things, you've got those 3 formats that they can be in. And then from there, yeah, once that's been indicated, save it. Ensure you do save it into a CSV format. If you save it in just a normal Excel Word document, it actually won't import it at all. Okay, then also you can also select your dates to import, or otherwise just all the transactions. So if you've already indicated the dates on the banking side, import all those transactions, or otherwise the dates to import. The system will actually recognize if you have imported a similar file on the system. It will actually tell you this file has already been imported. Okay, then what I want to do is just want to indicate quickly on, because what I mean, I've got a bit through. What I'm going to do is address a few of the questions just to have a look so that we have dealt with it. And then what I want to do is actually just show you if you want to make any changes or actually just view what you've processed. So once you've processed your bank statement, from there go make changes. So I'm going to delete majority of this. So like I said, if you want to delete, you just select the red column. The line disappears and it is gone, because many times you might have already manually captured it. Okay, so here I'm going to go and indicate. Okay, so this is how you're going to allocate it. From there, indicate is it a customer, is it a supplier, and then also just map it and then save. If I'm happy with the way it displays and I don't actually want it to change the description, I can just say save like that. Okay, then also more of my customers. Okay, so I just want to quickly complete this file. And this is exactly the way you're going to do it on your side. John. Okay, I mean, you're going to have a lot more transactions. Mine has been a bit filtered, you know, just to show you exactly how it is done. So from there, I'm just going to map, save, map, and then save that. Okay, so you'll see all my fields are grayed out there, so I know now that everything has been mapped. Once that's done, I'm going to say save and next. And then go to my next screen, so account. Okay, ensure that if you haven't got an expense account set up, save this and then go in there and then go and put it to an expense account. So I'm just going to put general expenses. From there I can also map it every time you see a certain thing. Okay, and then okay, great. So now that's all been allocated. So what I'm going to do is process that. Just another system saying to me that I haven't allocated, so which is quite nice. If you have a look at that message on your screen, the system tells you you haven't actually allocated, so ensure that you do. Okay, so I'm going to allocate it. Okay, so just if you have a look there, if you go mapping and you actually save it, the system will say the description has already been used to map the transaction. To edit the mapping, go to banking. So if you try and change it, a certain mapping, the system will say to you instead, rather go banking, map bank transaction. So we went a bit earlier. So if you just, I'm just waiting for it to refresh on your screen. Okay, so I'm just waiting. Okay, so if you have a look at the bottom, so if you want to go change it and you don't want it to reflect it as a certain thing, go to banking, map banking transaction. So even once you've done your first bank statements and you've mapped all of this, go and view it and have a look if there's anything you would like to change on it. Okay, so I'm just mapping everything as is. Okay, so now I'm going to try and process that again. Okay, so that's been processed now. So what I'm going to do is go actually to my banking, process banks and credit cards. Okay, then I'm going to tick previous. Okay, I mean in your case you could tick the block and then from there actually go and select the period. So I'm going to select the period that my bank file was for. Okay, so you'd actually be working with like updated data. So I know this is for the September period. Okay, so I'll select first. Okay, so there you'll see all your payments that were allocated now. Okay, so let's say I think I did have a query regarding if you wanted to change anything. So let's say you allocated something on the bank statement and then processed it. And then just to notice that you actually processed it to the wrong account. You can always come in, view it for that certain period that you processed it, and then from there go and indicate what accounts, what description is it, and then you can actually go and make the change on that. Okay, and you can also delete a line if need be. Ensure that it hasn't been reconciled though. If so, then it will actually become live, so you can delete it. Okay, then same on the receipt side, you'll see all the customer payments there. Okay, so what I want to do is, that's just actually viewing it once you've imported it, and if you need to make any changes, go pull it up on your process banks and credit cards. So let me just go into that. I'm just waiting for it to refresh on your side, the process banks and credit cards. Okay, and then go show previous transactions. So ensure that you're selecting the correct bank or credit card that you've actually processed on. show previous, go and select the date range for the specific file, and then everything will be displayed on the screen below. So either on a payments or otherwise on a receipt side of things. Okay, what I wanted to do is I also just wanted to touch, so once you've imported your bank statement, because I mean those are your receipts, those are your payments, to allocate it just on the customer side, you'd go customer, allocate receipts. Okay, from there I'm going to go select one of my customers. So what will happen is all the invoices will be displayed on the left hand side, and then on the right hand side will be all your unallocated. So this is what you've imported at the moment. So all you need to do is from your side is take where the receipt is, go and indicate it to a specific one. Otherwise, if you select it on a customer to automatically allocate it to the last invoice, you don't have to allocate this. Otherwise, if you know it's for a specific invoice, go and allocate it to that. You'll see as well, once you've allocated and it doesn't reach the full amount, you've still got a certain amount, you can take it over and then actually go and move it into another one. So what we'll do is that amount will actually show, okay, fine, you have made payments, a receipt has been allocated, and the certain receipt number. So that's I just wanted to touch a bit on that, because initially you're creating those invoices, the system is allocating it to the relevant customer, but not to a specific invoice. So customers might pay an invoice only 6 months, but a recent invoice they might have made the certain payment for. So from there, you can do all allocations on a customer and then allocate receipts. So everything that is unallocated will be, so this means it hasn't been allocated to the system, which would be the one that was from your bank statement imports, will be on the right-hand side, and you'll need to allocate it to all the invoices on the left-hand side. Otherwise, like I said, if you leave it, it will just allocate it automatically off the balance that is outstanding, so the last invoice. And then the same on the supplier side. You can go supplier, allocate payments, go and select the relevant supplier, and then allocate those payments. So I just wanted to touch a bit on that, because I mean initially when you're importing that, you just allocate, you're indicating which customer it is. But if you want to indicate it to a specific invoice, this is exactly where you'll do it. You'll go customer, allocate receipts, or otherwise suppliers, allocate payments. Okay, so that's a bit just touching on that. I'm actually just going to quickly go through the questions to see what might have been missed. Okay, I had a question from Laureen. She wants to know if you can change items already mapped previously, and will it only be possible on the next mapping? Okay, so Laureen, I think I've indicated that if you need to make any changes, you just go on a banking side, map bank statement transactions, and then from there you can change the relevant description. I've got a question from Samantha. Samantha, if you allocate, well, if you're manually processing your receipts through the month, then what I would suggest is when you're actually importing that bank statement, so I just want to quickly go there, import bank statements. Just want to import that file again. Okay, so Samantha wants to know what happens on the mapping when during the month you have already indicated customer receipts in the system. Surely it will duplicate the transactions. Okay, so what initially will happen is when you're importing that file, okay, a reference is produced on the system. That reference displayed there. In your case, you won't be using those references when you're processing your banks and credit cards. So what I would suggest is if that is something you do on a regular basis, rather delete the reference as indicated here, and then maybe also not use references when you're processing it, or unless if you are, delete the line. But what the system will do is, because it's very much date description and amount specific, what will happen is the system will actually say that has been imported. So this specific code will ensure that it actually does import, but if you've already mapped it, ensure that nothing's in there, and that you guys work on the same sequence, so only indicating it to a customer, the customer account, and then the month. So I hope that answers the question, because what will happen is when you try and import that, the system will say something similar has already appeared, and then from there you need to go on the banking side. I mean, from your guys' side, you can actually import the file. Like I said, you can actually go and delete lines and change it after you've imported the bank statement. So if you want to get the hang of it and see exactly which is going to be best suited for your specific company, import the bank statements, and then from there, have a look if you're importing it, what would you need to do? Change the description, use a similar description, that type of thing. So see which would best be suited for the company. I'm just quickly going through some of the questions. I've got a question from Monet. Can I import and map from 2 different accounts on the same company? Yes, you would be able to do that. The mapping on the system, that is universal, so it would be applicable for all your banks and credit cards. If you wanted to change it, let's say on the description side it was different, you could actually go and indicate that. So if we go in there, you'll see that this isn't account specific. So if let's say you're importing your check account or your savings account, whichever it might be, the system will actually read it as universal mapping on the specific company. So it's company specific, but the accounts, it's not just for specific accounts. Okay, Jennifer, I've got a question from you. Once you have mapped a transaction, is it possible to change the allocation on a future bank statement? I'm assuming that's if you want to make changes on the bank statement. I think I have touched on that, where you'd go to your banking side of things. From there, go and select process banks and credit cards, and then you can pull up that specific date range and then go make changes if need be. So let me know if that does answer your question. I've got a question from Camille. Wants to know, hello, if you started importing CSV file on a regular basis, can you switch to OFX, or should you keep on importing CSV? At any time, you can switch over to OFX. The system doesn't specifically work on the CSV, so it's not fixed on whichever one you're using on a regular basis. So if you want to use CSV the one month, OFX the next month, CSV the next month, it really doesn't matter. The system will import it, ensure that your date range is 100% correct though. So that won't make a difference. If you want to switch now and try out the OFX format, go right ahead and do that. The system will actually import it. I've got a question from Skull. Can the tax type also be mapped? Yes, Skull. The tax type can actually be mapped on that. And especially if you have a look on the specific screen you're having a look at now, you've got your customer. From there, you can actually go and indicate the specific tax. So if you're on that screen and you're allocating all of that and you select standard tax, whichever it might be, the system will remember also what type of taxing system that is. Okay, I've got a question from Heidi. When is the best time of the month to import the bank statement? I process receipts during the course of the month. If I map the payment, then there's a duplicate of receipts. Do I delete the line on the bank statement as I already allocated the payments? Yes, Heidi, this is an option. Otherwise, what you can do is, you can import that bank statement on a weekly basis or even on a daily basis. So you're not restricted to a month. It's whenever you feel you need to import it, and if you don't want to manually go and capture all those payments or receipts. So you can do it on a weekly, daily, monthly basis. I've got a question from Francis. Why do you not select and change the tax type? Is this relevant to the demo today, or is it specifically when you're on the system? Because I mean, I'm just running quickly through the system just to show you exactly how to do on a mapping side. I mean, on a tax side, yes, you'd actually need to go and sit and indicate which tax type it would be relevant for. So I hope that answers your questions. Please let me know, Francis, if it's anything specific. Okay, I've got a question from Yanni. Yanni says they do it on a daily basis. So, Yanni, if you don't want to do the mapping at all, you don't have to do that. The only reason we've provided the mapping is so that it makes it simple and easy for you to actually just, every time you import a file, for the system to recognize that. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to start addressing, continue with some of the questions, but I'd just like to just quickly go completely over that. So on a banking side, all you'll do is go banking, import bank statements. So as I indicated on the import bank statements, you've got two different formats. So you'll need to go and indicate your relevant bank account. You've got two formats, OFX or CSV. OFX, initially you just go into your bank, from there save it and import it immediately into the My Business Online program. So you won't have to do any changes on there. You won't even have to view the file. And the system will automatically pull it through. Alternatively, you've got your CSV format. Always ensure that if you're looking at the CSV format, first open it up in your Excel, have a look that it is in the correct format. That format again is date, description, amount. It has to follow in that sequence. Also have a look how your data is set up. So date, month, year, specifically what's indicated on the system. Date, month, year, year, month, date, or month, date, year. Okay, so OFX is always your first format that you'll select. If you don't have an option of an OFX, CSV would be your next one. Open it up in Excel, ensure your format is correct, and ensure also what your dates have been set up, and then from there you can actually process it. You'll also have an option of all transactions to import. So if you're exporting the bank statements, you importing everything, rather select, well, you can select all transaction, otherwise dates to import, so a specific range in that. Once that imports, you'd be required to either allocate it to an account, a customer, supplier. Okay, from there your selection would be either a relevant account, otherwise if you select customer, will be a list of your customers, or otherwise supplier. From there you'll get a reference. You can make changes to reference if required, and then also the description that pulled through, and then also what it is, receipts, payments. Then you can also indicate the tax on it, and then they will have the amount and then the tax. And then from there either you can delete a line if it's not applicable, or otherwise map it. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to do this for each and every transaction. The system will, if you try and process it, will tell you that a certain line has not been processed, well, been allocated. Okay, so once that's done, so especially if you have a look when I imported that file, because it was exactly the same file I was using earlier, because I went to go and map a lot of it, the system actually pulled it through for me and it did grey it out. But I can at any time go in and actually change that. You don't have to make use of the mapping if you don't want to. However, it does make it easier, because even if I have a look at that file, I only have to map 3 of the fields now. Okay, so once that's done, you can actually go save next. We'll take you to the next column, because the system only displays 10 transactions on one screen. So you'll go save next, view the next 10, and so forth. Once that's done, you can process it. To view that, you can go to banking, process banks and credit cards. From there, go to Okay, then from there, select the relevant bank account. You can select show previous bank and credit card transactions, so go and indicate that specific range. What the system will do is it will actually pull through everything that you did when you imported that bank statement. So let's say 3 months down the line, 4 months down the line, you realized you made a mistake on one of the customers or you allocated a payment incorrectly to the wrong account. You can actually just go and change it on the system or otherwise delete it. Okay, so that's pretty much on the banking side. I'm going to quickly try and run through some of the questions. Okay, Nadine, similar question to Francis. Do you have to map every time or can you process without clicking map? Okay, so like I said, if you want to map the transaction, you can select on the mapping. If you don't, you can actually just process it. So the system gives you an option to map. If you don't make use of it, you can just continue. But you need to ensure that you are allocating it to a type and then a selection. So you're typing your customer, your supplier, your accounts, and so forth. And then from your selection, what type of account, what customer, what supplier. I've got a question from Samantha. So is it actually better not to update your payment customers have made during the month, instead to import bank statements at the end of the month? Samantha, if that suits you guys better, then you can work in that alternative. Otherwise, what you can do is start importing your bank statements on a weekly basis and then from there allocating it. So it depends on what is required from your side, but yes, you can do it in that following way. I've got a question from Skull. Can you allocate a higher value to a specific invoice if the client overpaid you? Yes, Skull, if you had a look on that screen when I was, let me quickly go onto there. Customers, allocate, receipts. So you're going to go customers, allocate receipts. From there, if I go select a certain customer. Okay, so if you have a look here, the customer might have paid, I'm working on a 35,000 Rand basis. Let's say for the last invoice I've got, which is only 33. So because the amount is high, if I drag it across and actually drop it in there, the system's going to throw back 1,750 Rand. So let's say the client did overpay. So what I can do is actually allocate that to another invoice depending on what's agreed upon. So the system won't take the complete amount, but will actually unallocate the amount that was overpaid. Hope that answers your question, Skulk. I've got a question from Grant. Why do I sometimes get an error when importing OFX? Grant, maybe if you could be specific on those errors that you're getting. I mean, the thing is, we don't encounter too many errors on an OFX side because it's not a complicated import. By all means, though, please, when you're importing that file, maybe give us a ring so that we can just go step by step through it and then see exactly why it could be. Okay, I've got a question from Sylvia. Sylvia wants to know, does the system automatically calculate input and output tax, show you where you choose tax type for customers or supplier? Sylvia, with regards to the tax, when you're importing that bank statement, initially when you generated the invoices for you, whether it be a customer or supplier, the tax was already indicated there. So the amounts you're working on the banking side are inclusive amounts. I hope that answers your question. I've got a question from Belinda. All transactions you imported show no tax. Do you have to change it manually? Yes, you would have to change it manually, Belinda. But what you can do is, as you are changing it, you can indicate it to the relevant tax type and map it so that the system indicates, well, every time you import it will automatically, let's say if you indicated standard tax, we'll allocate it to the standard tax. For my demo purposes, I left everything as no tax. So you, by all means, you would manually need to go and change that. From there, map it, and the system will always indicate that. Okay, I've got a question from Warren. Warren wants to know, in the process, banks and credit card section, once you have imported the bank statement, can you make changes to the tax type? Yes, so everything you do import, so if I go banking, process, banks and credit cards, and I view previous transactions, okay, so I'm just going to wait for that quickly to run. Okay, so if you have a look on, okay, so I just want to pull up the previous one. Okay, so you've got your amounts, your relevant tax. So once you've indicated the no tax, the system will keep it as that. Okay, so what I would suggest is if you have made a mistake on the tax type, keep that line on the specific page, add a line. If you need to put in the transaction, then go and change the tax type on that specific customer, and then you can just delete that line where you might have made the mistake. So if that answers your question, Warren, so initially, if you made a mistake on the tax, go in here, go and have a look which one would be incorrect, add a line, and then go and reselect that certain supplier customer account, and then go and change, and then just delete that line at the same time as you're indicating it. Scott, you're referring to past allocations might have fixed via journals. The thing is, lots of stuff can be fixed on the cash book if you're importing certain stuff. Just as I indicated now in Warren's query as well, what you can do is rather delete the line, because you can actually delete a line, and then add a new item on that. I think that would resolve it instead of actually having to go and process a journal. Might just be a bit easier. I've got a question from Sylvia. I have downloaded statements from the bank and filed it in a PDF format on my computer. Can I import it, or must I manually do it? Unfortunately, you are going to manually have to do that since PDF isn't one of our formats. It's only an OFX or CSV. So what I would suggest is maybe going into the banking so that you can get an Excel format instead of the PDF formats. So you would manually need to capture it then. Grant, on that, with regards to the error that you mentioned earlier, are you getting the error on the bank side, or are you getting the error as you import it into My Business Online? I've got a question from Kenita. If the client, so if you don't make use of bank statements and you're manually capturing it, can you map it? Yes, you can. So you'll have a look. We've got a banking and then a map description list. So this specifically when you're doing a manual and you want the system to remember, so not when you're importing the bank statement. So if I just go back into my banking side, okay, so once you're in there, you have an option to map it. The system also will tend to remember the different transacting that you've done. So the only difference is instead of going to your map bank statement transaction, you're just going map description list so that you don't have to redo that. Hi, Debbie. I think, yeah, it's Debbie. Please can you show us how to do a bank recon? Debbie, there's not much time now to do the bank recon. We do have a webinar though, so please have a look out for the webinar on the bank recon, and then we can go through that. Nadine wants to know, when importing the bank statement, you would have expenses you allocate once off, can you allocate with cost codes as well? Nadine, I'm not too sure what you're referring to on the cost code side of things. You can use that in your reference side of things. I'm not too specific on, because I mean we have cost code fields specifically. Okay, I'm just waiting for a few more questions to come through. Just to close off though, I mean, I'd like to give you guys our support line, and as well, if you would like to send any support emails. So the support line is 011-304-3805. I'm going to give that again to you, 011-304-3805. If you need any assistance on that, if you want to drop an email to the support guys, you can also email support@pastelmybusiness.co.za, and we'll get, well, you'd probably have a response within 24 hours. Sometimes even quicker, because we do have a dedicated team that actually work through those emails. So whichever suits you better, you can either make use of that. So I'm just going to repeat that again, 011-304-3805. Alternatively, support@pastelmybusiness.co.za.
Thank you for joining us for this My Business Online webinar. If you found it useful, please visit the Pastel website to find out about future My Business Online webinars or training courses. Alternatively, contact us on sales@pastelmybusiness.co.za.